Alien commanders panicked, as a human crushed a planet-sized beast with his fists, became reality when Colonel Marcus Hale, his advanced exosuit failing, exposed his bare, bleeding hands to the alien atmosphere. With primal determination, he wedged his fingers into the creature's central bone structure and split it apart, triggering a catastrophic cascade failure throughout the cosmic entity's nervous system, as Zorath warriors watched in disbelief. The vast blackness of space embraced the expedition cruiser as it approached Epsilon Theta, a planet hovering at the edge of known space. Colonel Marcus Hale stood on the observation deck, his weathered hands clasped tightly behind his back. The year was 2475, and humanity had finally earned its place among the stars as part of the Galactic Alliance. As commander of Earth's Exploration Battalion, Marcus had seen his share of cosmic wonders. But Epsilon Theta was different. Located in the region known as the Dark Abyss, the planet sat precariously close to the territory of the Zorath Dominion, a powerful alien empire known for their advanced biological technology and military prowess. "Colonel, we're receiving the landing coordinates now," Lieutenant Reyes announced, her voice cutting through Marcus's contemplation. "The Zorath delegation is already waiting at the rendezvous point." Marcus nodded, his steely eyes fixed on the approaching planet. Its surface was a chaotic blend of vast oceans and twisted landmasses covered in acid forests. But what truly captivated his attention was the massive gash that carved through the northern hemisphere, the Leviathan Pit, a chasm thousands of kilometers deep that scientists had been eager to study for decades. "Remember our mission, Lieutenant," Marcus said, his voice carrying the weight of responsibility. "The success of this expedition could determine Earth's standing in future galactic negotiations. We need to prove our worth to the Zorath." "Yes, sir. The xenobiologists are preparing their equipment now," Reyes replied, glancing at her datapad. "Dr. Selena Voss says she's particularly excited about studying the pit's ecosystem." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. Selena's enthusiasm was infectious, and her expertise in xenobiology had been instrumental in securing this joint mission with the Zorath. The alliance was tenuous at best. Earth was still considered a newcomer to interstellar politics, and the Zorath had a reputation for technological superiority and arrogance. As the cruiser began its descent toward the landing zone, Marcus's thoughts turned to General Koresh, the Zorath military commander who would be overseeing the demonstration of their creature control power before the Galactic Council. The Zorath were proud of their ability to manipulate and control biological entities, and this demonstration was meant to showcase their dominance in this field. Marcus had read Koresh's dossier extensively, a decorated veteran with hundreds of conquests under his belt and a deep-seated skepticism of humanity's capabilities. "Time to prove him wrong," Marcus muttered to himself as the cruiser touched down on the landing pad with a gentle thud. The welcoming committee was precisely what Marcus had expected, a formation of Zorath soldiers in their biomechanical armor, standing at rigid attention as a taller figure strode forward. General Koresh was an imposing sight, his scaled skin a deep indigo that seemed to absorb the surrounding light. 4 arms were crossed over his chest in the traditional Zorath greeting, and his serpentine eyes regarded Marcus with unmistakable calculation. "Colonel Hale," Koresh's voice was a low rumble, the universal translator barely needed given his perfect command of human languages. "The Galactic Council awaits our demonstration. I trust your journey was uneventful." Marcus stepped forward, offering the customary Zorath salute. "General Koresh, it's an honor to finally meet you. My team is eager to begin our collaborative research." A flicker of something, amusement, perhaps, or disdain, crossed Koresh's features. "Collaborative? Yes, that is the term the Council insisted upon." He gestured toward a massive structure in the distance, its architecture a blend of organic curves and technological precision. The observation platform has been prepared. The council representatives will arrive within the hour. Your scientists may set up their equipment, but I must emphasize that they are here primarily as observers. Marcus maintained his diplomatic smile despite the subtle dismissal. Of course, General. We're grateful for the opportunity to learn from the Zorath Dominion's expertise. As they walked toward the facility, Dr. Selena Voss fell into step beside Marcus. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and her eyes gleamed with scientific curiosity. Colonel, the readings from the Leviathan pit are absolutely fascinating, she whispered, keeping her voice low. The energy signatures suggest biological activity on a scale I've never encountered before. Save your excitement for later, Dr. Voss, Marcus murmured. For now, we need to play our part as the respectful junior partners in this alliance. Selena's enthusiasm dimmed slightly, but she nodded in understanding. I've instructed the team to be discreet with their observations. Still, there's something about that pit that doesn't align with the briefing materials the Zorath provided. The biometric readings are erratic. Before Marcus could inquire further, they reached the observation platform, a magnificent structure extending out over the edge of the Leviathan pit. The chasm below was a yawning void, its depths lost in darkness, despite the powerful lights positioned along its rim. Zorath scientists moved efficiently among complex machinery, making final adjustments for the demonstration. High-ranking officials from the Galactic Council had already arrived, representing a dozen different species and civilizations. Marcus recognized the crystalline form of the Zalarian ambassador and the floating gas clouds that contained the consciousness of the Nubuli delegation. All of them were gathered to witness the Zorath's mastery over biological life forms, a display that could potentially shift the balance of power in the galactic community. General Koresh took his position at the center of the platform, his commanding presence drawing all attention. Distinguished representatives of the Galactic Council, honored guests. His voice carried across the assembly with practiced authority. Today, the Zorath Dominion will demonstrate our supreme control over biological entities, a technology we have perfected over millennia. This display will illustrate why the Zorath should lead the Council's new biological defense initiative. Marcus noticed the barely concealed pride in Koresh's words, the implicit suggestion that Earth and other younger civilizations were unworthy of such responsibility. He kept his expression neutral, though his jaw tightened imperceptibly. The Leviathan pit before you houses various indigenous creatures that we have been studying for decades, Koresh continued, gesturing to the abyss. Using our biomechanical technology, we will summon and control a Category 3 entity from the depths, a demonstration of precision and dominance that only the Zorath can achieve. As Koresh's scientists activated their equipment, a low hum filled the air. Marcus felt a subtle vibration through the platform beneath his feet, gradually intensifying as the machines powered up. Selena moved closer, her scientific instruments discreetly recording the proceedings. "Colonel," she whispered urgently, "the energy readings are spiking in an unusual pattern. This doesn't match any controlled summon protocol I've studied." Marcus frowned, glancing at the Zorath operators. Their movements had become more hurried, exchanging quick, concerned glances as they adjusted controls. Something wasn't right. The first tremor was subtle, a brief shudder that could have been dismissed as a part of the procedure. But the second tremor rocked the entire platform, sending several delegates stumbling. Alarm flashed across Koresh's face as he barked orders to his subordinates in rapid Zorath. "Stabilize the resonance field! Increase containment parameters!" Koresh's commands grew more urgent as the tremors intensified. "Something is interfering with the control matrix." Marcus stepped forward. "General, what's happening?" Koresh shot him a glare that mingled frustration and growing concern. A feedback loop in the bioresonance field. Nothing we cannot handle. But the Zorath commander's assurance was immediately contradicted by a massive seismic shock that threw everyone to the ground. The observation platform groaned under the stress, its support structures creaking ominously. From the depths of the Leviathan pit, a low, reverberating sound emerged. Not a roar, but something more primordial, like the grinding of tectonic plates. "All personnel, evacuation protocol!" Koresh shouted, his composure finally cracking. "Council delegates to the shuttles immediately!" Chaos erupted as the assembled dignitaries rushed toward the evacuation points. Marcus helped a fallen Zalarian ambassador to her feet, then turned to Selena, who was still fixated on her readings. "Dr. Voss, we need to evacuate now," he urged. But the scientist shook her head, her face pale. "Colonel, this isn't just a Category 3 entity," she said, her voice barely audible over the growing cacophony. "The mass displacement readings suggest something far larger. The Zorath have awakened something, ancient." As if in response to her words, the edge of the platform closest to the pit suddenly tore away, metal and composite materials shearing like paper. A massive, shadowy appendage emerged from the depths, a tendril as wide as a cruiser, covered in iridescent scales that seemed to absorb, rather than reflect light. "The cosmic shadow streak," a Zorath scientist gasped, abandoning his post and fleeing. "It's impossible. It was just a legend." More tendrils followed, lashing out at the platform and the surrounding structures. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the creature's presence as it continued to rise from the abyss. Plasma discharges crackled along its surface, sending shockwaves that disabled the nearest Zorath cruiser. Marcus grabbed his communicator. "Lieutenant Reyes, initiate emergency protocols. Get our team to the extraction point." He turned to Selena. "Dr. Voss, I need everything you can tell me about this creature, now." Selena's fingers flew over her instruments. "It's emitting electromagnetic pulses that are disrupting Zorath technology. The creature appears to be sensitive to the control frequencies they were using. It's not just awakened, it's enraged." Across the crumbling observation deck, General Koresh was mobilizing his forces, his 4 arms simultaneously operating different control systems. "Deploy the biogenic weapons. Target the primary tendrils." Marcus watched as Zorath fighters swarmed from nearby hangars, firing concentrated energy beams at the emerging creature. The attacks seemed to only further aggravate it, as more of its massive form rose from the pit, a colossal, shadowy mass that blotted out the sky. "General," Marcus called out, fighting his way through the chaos toward Koresh. "Your weapons are making it worse. We need to understand what we're dealing with before attacking." Koresh turned, his expression a mixture of fury and disbelief. "This is not the time for human caution. Colonel, this is a Category 5 extinction-level entity. It must be destroyed immediately." "But your attacks are escalating its defensive responses," Marcus argued, pointing to where the creature's tendrils had wrapped around a Zorath cruiser, crushing it like a toy. "Let my xenobiologist analyze its composition. There might be another way." "There is no other way," Koresh roared, slamming all 4 fists down on the control panel. "The cosmic shadow has awakened, and if we do not destroy it now, this entire sector will be lost." As they argued, the creature continued its emergence. It was now clear that what they faced was not merely large, it was planetary in scale, a living entity with the mass of a small moon. Its body was an undulating darkness, punctuated by bioluminescent patterns that pulsed hypnotically. The surviving council members watched in horror from their evacuation vessels as it engulfed entire sections of the planet's surface. Marcus made a decision. "General, continue your defensive measures, but give me 30 minutes with my team. We'll approach from the southern ridge where the creature's activity is less intense." Before Koresh could object, Marcus was already moving, gathering the human expedition members who remained. Selena quickly assembled her equipment, and a small team of Earth's finest scientists and soldiers formed around them. "Colonel, this is suicide," Lieutenant Reyes said bluntly as they boarded a transport vehicle. "That thing is the size of a small planet, which means it must have vulnerabilities proportionate to its size," Marcus replied, his mind racing through tactical possibilities. "Dr. Voss, what do we know about its physiology?" Selena projected a holographic model based on her scans. "Its outer layer appears to be a form of living armor, energy absorbent and incredibly dense. But there are points where the armor connects to what I believe is an internal skeletal structure. Those junction points might be more vulnerable." The transport sped toward the southern ridge, navigating through terrain that trembled with each movement of the colossal entity. Above them, Zorath warships continued their assault, raining down biogenic weapons that dissipated harmlessly against the creature's surface. In response, the cosmic shadow unleashed tendrils of energy that sliced through the alien vessels with terrifying precision. Upon reaching the ridge, Marcus deployed his team strategically. "Dr. Voss, you have the best scanning equipment. Find us a weakness. Lieutenant Reyes, establish a communication link with the Zorath Command Center. We need to coordinate any action we take." Selena worked feverishly, her instruments probing the creature's enormous form as it continued to rise from the pit. "There's something here," she finally said, pointing to a section where several tendrils connected to the main body. "The armor is thinner at these junctions, and there's a concentration of neural activity. It might be a control node." Marcus studied the area she indicated. It was several hundred meters up the creature's flank, accessible only by traversing its undulating surface. "How would we disable it?" "A concentrated electromagnetic pulse might disrupt its nervous system temporarily," Selena suggested. "But we'd need to deliver it directly to the node. Remote detonation would be ineffective against its outer armor." Just then, a Zorath shuttle descended nearby, and General Koresh emerged, accompanied by a squad of elite soldiers. His expression was grim as he approached Marcus. "Your time is up, Colonel. My forces are preparing a final assault with our most powerful weapons." Marcus gestured to Selena's findings. "We've located a potential weakness, General. A neural node that might allow us to temporarily paralyze the creature without destroying half the planet in the process." Koresh studied the data with narrowed eyes. "And how do you propose to deliver this pulse to a target on the surface of a rampaging cosmic entity?" "The experimental exosuit," Marcus said firmly. "The one my team brought for deep space exploration. It has enough propulsion capability to reach the target and sufficient shielding to protect the pilot." Realization dawned on Koresh's face. "You intend to pilot it yourself? A suicide mission?" "A calculated risk," Marcus corrected. "The suit can withstand the creature's outer defenses long enough to plant the pulse device." For a long moment, Koresh was silent, his ancient eyes evaluating the human commander. Finally, he spoke. "The Zorath will provide covering fire to create a distraction. But I warn you, Colonel, if your plan fails, I will not hesitate to deploy our ultimate weapon, regardless of the collateral damage." Marcus nodded grimly. "Understood, General. Lieutenant Reyes, prepare the exosuit." As his team rushed to ready the equipment, Marcus took a moment alone with Selena. "If this goes wrong—" "It won't," she interrupted, her expression fierce. "The calculations are sound, and you're too stubborn to die on an alien planet." A ghost of a smile touched Marcus's lips. "Monitor the creature's reactions and guide me to the target. If anything changes, don't hesitate to abort the mission." The exosuit was a marvel of human engineering, sleek, flexible, and powered by the latest fusion cells. As Marcus stepped into it, mechanical components closed around his body, enhancing his strength and protecting him with layers of advanced materials. The helmet sealed with a soft hiss, and holographic displays illuminated before his eyes. Systems check complete, Reyes reported. Power at maximum. Communications online. Marcus flexed his enhanced limbs, feeling the suit respond to his movements with fluid precision. Pulse device. Secured in the external compartment, Selena confirmed. Once you reach the neural node, simply attach it and activate. The timer is set for 30 seconds, enough time for you to clear the immediate area. From his command position, General Koresh watched with barely concealed skepticism. Your human technology seems primitive. Sometimes primitive is exactly what you need, Marcus replied, initiating the suit's propulsion system. Begin distraction maneuvers on my mark. The creature was now fully emerged from the Leviathan pit, its colossal body blotting out the sky. Bioluminescent patterns rippled across its surface as it continued to lash out at the Zorath ships. The scale of it was beyond comprehension, a living entity with the mass and power to reshape worlds. "Mark!" Marcus shouted, and the exosuit's thrusters ignited, propelling him toward the creature's flank. Simultaneously, Zorath fighters swooped in from multiple directions, firing precisely coordinated bursts at the opposite side of the entity. The distraction worked. The cosmic shadow's attention turned toward the Zorath assault, allowing Marcus to approach the neural node Selena had identified. The creature's surface was not solid as it appeared from a distance, but a constantly shifting mass of materials that ranged from liquid to crystalline. "I am approaching the target zone," Marcus reported, maneuvering through undulating tendrils. "Dr. Voss, confirm coordinates." 15 degrees to your right, Selena's voice came through clearly. The node should be visible as a cluster of bioluminescent tissues. Marcus adjusted his trajectory, the exosuit's enhanced vision piercing through the creature's natural camouflage. There it was, a pulsing nexus of light and energy that seemed to coordinate the movements of the surrounding tendrils. He pushed the suit to its limits, closing the final distance with a burst of speed. "I'm at the target, preparing to attach the pulse device." As Marcus reached for the external compartment, a violent tremor ran through the creature's body. One of the Zorath attacks had struck a sensitive area, and the cosmic shadow was now thrashing in pain and rage. A massive tendril whipped toward Marcus, catching him off guard. "Evasive maneuvers!" Selena shouted, but it was too late. The tendril slammed into the exosuit, sending Marcus tumbling across the creature's surface. Warning lights flashed across his display as the suit's integrity was compromised. "Colonel!" Reyes's voice was frantic. "Suit power dropping to critical levels!" Marcus struggled to regain control, the exosuit's damaged thrusters sputtering as he skidded across the shifting surface. "I'm still functional," he grunted, forcing the suit upright. "But I've been knocked off course. Recalibrating." On the command ridge, Koresh watched the humans' desperate struggle with growing respect. "Prepare rescue craft," he ordered a subordinate. "The human has shown courage worthy of a Zorath warrior." But rescue would come too late. As Marcus fought to navigate back to the neural node, the creature's defensive systems activated. Crystalline spines erupted from its surface, one of them piercing the exosuit's leg component. Marcus cried out as pain lanced through his body, the suit's medical systems flooding his system with painkillers. "Suit integrity failing," the automated system announced calmly. "Power reserves at 12%. Marcus dragged himself forward, every movement an agony as the damaged suit struggled to respond. "I'm not going to make it to the node in this condition," he reported, his voice strained. "Dr. Voss, are there any other vulnerabilities within my reach?" Selena's voice was tight with concern. "There's a secondary structure 20 meters to your left, what appears to be an external bone or support strut. It's less protected than the neural node, but damaging it might cause enough pain to temporarily distract the creature." With grim determination, Marcus altered his course, pulling himself toward the new target. The exosuit was barely functioning now, its power reserves depleting rapidly. As he reached the bone-like structure, he realized the pulse device was no longer an option. The compartment had been damaged in the impact. "I've reached the target, but the pulse device is inoperable," he reported, switching to Plan B. "Colonel, what are you doing?" Selena demanded. "Without the pulse?" "Sometimes you have to improvise," Marcus replied, as the exosuit's external armor began to retract, responding to critical power failure protocols. The bone structure before him was massive, easily the size of a small building, but he could see hairline fractures where it connected to the creature's main body. With the last of the suit's power, Marcus drove his enhanced fist into one of these fractures. The impact sent shockwaves up his arm, but the bone shifted slightly. Again and again, he struck, each blow weakening the structure further. "The suit's completely failing," Marcus gasped as the power finally gave out. The exosuit systems went dark, leaving him in nothing more than a high-tech shell with no enhancement. But he was close. The bone was cracking under his assault. In a final, desperate move, Marcus tore off the powerless gauntlets, exposing his bare hands to the alien environment. The atmosphere was breathable but harsh, immediately raising blisters on his exposed skin. Ignoring the pain, he wedged his fingers into the fracture he'd created and pulled with all his human strength. "Colonel Hale, what are you doing?" Koresh's voice cut through the communication channel. "Without your suit's protection." "Sometimes technology fails us, General," Marcus grunted, feeling the bone structure start to give way. But the human spirit doesn't. With a primal roar that echoed across the communication channels, Marcus heaved against the bone with everything he had. Muscles strained, tendons threatened to snap, but he pushed beyond the limitations of his body. And then, with a sound like a mountain cracking, the bone structure shattered beneath his hands. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The cosmic shadow convulsed, a shockwave of pain rippling through its massive form. Tendrils that had been destroying Zorath ships suddenly withdrew, coiling protectively around its core. The creature's bioluminescent patterns flared in chaotic bursts, indicating severe distress. "It's working!" Selena exclaimed. "The creature is responding to the damage. Colonel, can you target any other structures?" Marcus was already moving, crawling across the creature's surface toward another bone protrusion. His hands were bleeding, skin torn from the previous effort, but adrenaline dulled the pain. "I see another junction point, moving to engage. On the command ridge." General Koresh watched in disbelief as the human, now without any technological assistance, continued to assault the cosmic entity with nothing but his bare hands. "Impossible," he murmured. But the evidence was undeniable. The creature was reacting, its attacks on the Zorath fleet diminishing as it focused on the immediate threat. Marcus reached the second bone structure and immediately went to work, searching for weak points with his bloody fingers. Finding a hairline fracture similar to the first, he drove his fist into it with all his remaining strength. The bone cracked, but didn't break. "Come on," Marcus growled, striking again and again. His knuckles split open, blood making his grip slippery, but he refused to yield. Finally, with a resounding crack, this bone too gave way beneath his assault. The creature's reaction was even more violent this time. A screech that defied description tore through the air as the cosmic shadow thrashed in agony. Its massive body began to contract, tendrils withdrawing toward its central mass. The gravitational field around the Leviathan pit fluctuated wildly, causing rocks and debris to float momentarily before crashing down again. "Colonel, our sensors indicate the creature is preparing for a massive energy discharge," Selena warned. "You need to get clear of its surface immediately." But Marcus had seen something, a larger, central bone structure protruding from what appeared to be the creature's equivalent of a chest. If the peripheral bones had caused such pain, destroying this central one might be enough to drive the entity back into the depths. "One more target," he gasped, his voice barely audible over the communication channel. "I can end this." "Marcus, no." Selena's use of his first name betrayed her emotion. "The structural integrity of that area is too strong. You can't break it with your bare hands." "Watch me," Marcus replied, summoning his last reserves of strength as he made his way toward the central bone. The creature's surface had become increasingly unstable, rippling and shifting beneath him as it prepared its counterattack. Every movement was a struggle against both the hostile environment and his own failing body. General Koresh, monitoring the situation from his command center, made a rapid decision. "All ships, focus fire on the area surrounding the human. Create a path for him to reach the central structure." Zorath vessels swarmed above, their precision weapons carving a temporary corridor through the creature's defenses. Marcus used this opportunity to make his final approach, finally reaching the massive central bone that pulsed with the creature's life energy. This structure was different, not brittle like the others, but dense and resilient. Marcus examined it quickly, looking for any weakness. There was a seam running down its center, perhaps a growth line or natural division. "Dr. Voss," he panted, "I'm at the central structure. Any advice?" Selena's voice was strained. "Our scans indicate it's composed of a crystalline material similar to diamond, but with organic properties. The central seam might be your only chance, if you could wedge something into it and apply leverage." Marcus looked around desperately, but there was nothing to use as a tool. The remnants of his exosuit were far behind him, and the creature's surface offered no useful debris. There was only one option left: positioning himself at the seam. Marcus drove his fingers into the narrow gap. The crystalline edges sliced into his flesh, but he gritted his teeth against the pain and pushed deeper. When his fingers were fully wedged into the gap, he began to pull in opposite directions with each hand, attempting to split the bone along its natural seam. Nothing happened at first. The bone was too strong, too resistant to his human strength. But Marcus refused to give up. Closing his eyes, he focused every ounce of his remaining energy into his hands, his muscles straining beyond their natural limits. "Come on!" he roared, blood flowing freely from his lacerated fingers. "Break! Damn you!" And then, almost imperceptibly at first, the seam began to widen. A high-pitched keening sound emanated from the structure as microscopic fractures spread from the seam. Marcus redoubled his efforts, his vision blurring from pain and exhaustion, but his determination never wavering. With a sound like a thunderclap, the central bone suddenly split down its length. The two halves separated, revealing a pulsating core of energy within. The cosmic shadow convulsed, its entire massive form shuddering as if in its death throes. The bioluminescent patterns across its surface went haywire, flashing in chaotic sequences. "Get out of there now, Colonel!" Koresh bellowed over the communication channel. "The creature is destabilizing!" But Marcus couldn't move. The effort had drained him completely, and his damaged body refused to respond to his commands. He collapsed beside the shattered bone structure, his consciousness fading as the creature's death throes intensified around him. The last thing he was aware of was a Zorath extraction team landing nearby, rushing toward his prone form as the world dissolved into chaos and light. The explosion was visible from orbit, a massive discharge of energy as the cosmic shadow's body finally gave way. The shockwave decimated what remained of the observation platform and sent Zorath warships tumbling through the atmosphere. But the creature itself was gone, its enormous mass collapsing back into the Leviathan pit in a spectacular display of light and sound. In the aftermath, as rescue teams sorted through the debris, they found Marcus Hale's unconscious form protected by the bodies of two Zorath soldiers who had sacrificed themselves to shield him from the worst of the blast. Though gravely injured, the human commander still clung to life with the same tenacity he had shown in facing the cosmic entity. Dr. Selena Voss personally supervised his medical care, working alongside Zorath physicians to stabilize his condition. "His hands," she whispered, looking at the mangled appendages that had somehow destroyed a planet-sized beast. Can they be saved? The Zorath medical chief, a wizened individual with specialized biological knowledge, examined the damage carefully. With our regenerative technology, yes. But they will never be the same. The human has paid a high price for victory. General Koresh visited the medical bay regularly as Marcus slowly recovered. The Zorath commander stood by the human's bedside, his normally imposing presence subdued by respect. The council has been in emergency session since the incident. He informed Selena during one such visit. The destruction of the cosmic shadow has altered many perspectives, including my own. Selena looked up from her monitoring equipment. How so, General? Koresh's forearms moved in a gesture of profound consideration. The Zorath have always believed that technological superiority was the measure of a civilization's worth. We dismissed humans as primitive, relying too heavily on emotional responses rather than calculated action. He glanced at Marcus's unconscious form. But your colonel demonstrated something we had forgotten, that sometimes the most primitive response is also the most effective. Days later, Marcus finally regained consciousness in a Zorath reconciliation chamber, a room designed for healing both body and spirit. The walls pulsed with soft bioluminescence, creating an atmosphere of tranquility. As his eyes focused, he saw Selena sitting nearby, her face lighting up as she noticed his awakening. "Welcome back to the land of the living, Colonel," she said, moving to his side. "You've been unconscious for almost a week." Marcus tried to speak, but his throat was parched. Selena helped him sip water before he finally managed to ask. "The creature?" "Destroyed," she confirmed. "When you split that central bone structure, you triggered a cascade failure throughout its entire nervous system. It collapsed back into the Leviathan pit. The Zorath scientists believe it will take millennia for anything similar to evolve again." Marcus attempted to raise his hands, finding them heavily bandaged and surprisingly numb. "My hands?" Selena's expression softened. "The Zorath use their most advanced regenerative technology. You'll regain full functionality eventually, but there will be scarring. Apparently, crushing planet-sized monsters with your bare hands isn't without consequences." A low chuckle from the doorway drew their attention. General Koresh entered, accompanied by several high-ranking Zorath officials and representatives from the Galactic Council. "Colonel Hale," Koresh greeted him formally. "The Council has requested your presence as soon as you are able to attend. There are matters to discuss regarding the future of our civilizations." 2 days later, still weakened, but determined to represent humanity with dignity, Marcus stood before the Galactic Council in their temporary chambers. His hands were now in lighter bandages, allowing limited movement, and he wore his formal Earth uniform despite the discomfort. The council chamber fell silent as the Zalarian chairperson rose to speak. "Colonel Marcus Hale of Earth, your actions during the Epsilon Theta crisis have been reviewed extensively by this body. The destruction of the cosmic shadow entity saved countless lives across multiple systems and demonstrated qualities that many believed humans lacked." Marcus stood straight, his expression carefully neutral. "I only did what was necessary, Chairperson. Any member of my team would have done the same." "Perhaps," the chairperson acknowledged, crystal facets glinting as she tilted her head. "But it was you who did it, and in doing so, you have changed the Council's perspective on humanity's role in galactic affairs." General Koresh stepped forward, his formal ceremonial armor gleaming under the chamber lights. "The Zorath Dominion wishes to formally acknowledge the courage and resourcefulness demonstrated by Earth's representative. He paused, the admission clearly difficult for him. "We had underestimated human potential. This error in judgment will not be repeated." The chairperson nodded in acknowledgement before continuing. "In light of recent events, The Council has voted unanimously to establish a new joint initiative, the Alliance of Creatures and Technology, to be co-coordinated by representatives from Earth and the Zorath Dominion. Murmurs spread through the assembled delegates. This was unprecedented. Younger civilizations like Earth were rarely given such responsibility, and the Zorath had never before agreed to share authority. This alliance, the chairperson explained, will focus on harmonizing biological research with ethical guidelines, ensuring that incidents like the awakening of the cosmic shadow do not recur. Colonel Hale, in recognition of your unique insight into both the capabilities and limitations of technology, the Council requests that you serve as Earth's primary representative. Marcus was momentarily speechless. Such an appointment would elevate humanity's standing in the galactic community significantly. I am honored by the Council's trust, he finally managed. But I'm a soldier, not a diplomat. Which is precisely why you are suited for this role, General Koresh interjected. The Zorath value strength and decisive action. You have demonstrated both. More importantly, you have shown when to rely on technology and when to abandon it, a wisdom that even my people sometimes lack. Later, as the formal ceremonies concluded, Marcus found himself standing on a balcony overlooking the now calm surface of Epsilon Theta. The Leviathan pit was sealed with energy barriers, ensuring nothing else would emerge from its depths. Beside him stood General Koresh, the two commanders watching in silence as the dual suns set over the horizon. Your hands will heal, Koresh said suddenly. Our medical technology will ensure that. But the legend of the human who crushed a cosmic entity with his bare fists, that will never fade. Marcus smiled faintly. Legends tend to grow in the telling. I'm sure in a few years, the story will claim I defeated the creature with a single punch. Would that be so inaccurate? Koresh asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. What drove you in those final moments, Colonel? When your technology failed, when your body was breaking, what force sustained you? Marcus considered the question carefully. We humans have always survived on more than just our technology. General, there's something within us, call it spirit, determination, or simply stubbornness, that refuses to yield even when logic says we should. It's not always rational, but it's kept our species alive through countless disasters. Koresh nodded slowly. The Zorath once possessed such qualities, long ago. Perhaps we have relied too heavily on our technological superiority, forgetting the strengths that helped us achieve it in the first place. Then, maybe this alliance will benefit both our peoples, Marcus suggested. You can teach us about your advanced biological technology, and we can remind you of the power of raw determination. The following day, a formal ceremony marked the establishment of the Alliance of Creatures and Technology. In the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council, representatives from dozens of civilizations gathered to witness the historic moment. At the center of the proceedings stood Marcus Hale and General Koresh, together raising a new flag that combined elements of both Earth and Zorath symbolism. As the applause echoed through the chamber, Marcus looked down at his healing hands, the hands that had accomplished the impossible. They would bear the scars of his encounter with the cosmic shadow forever, but those scars would serve as a reminder that sometimes the most primitive solution was the most effective one. To the future, Koresh said quietly, extending one of his four hands to Marcus in the human gesture of a handshake. Marcus took the offered hand, his grip firm despite the lingering pain. To the future, he agreed, and to the unexpected alliances that shape it. As they shook hands before the assembled galactic representatives, Marcus couldn't help but smile at the irony. He had come to Epsilon Theta, hoping to prove humanity's worth through diplomatic skill and scientific cooperation. Instead, he had proven it through the most basic human quality of all, the refusal to surrender, even when faced with impossible odds. In the days that followed, As news of the events at Epsilon Theta spread across the galaxy, countless species told and retold the story of the human who had defeated a cosmic monster with nothing but his bare hands. The tale grew with each telling, as legends do, but at its core remained a simple truth, that in the vast, technology-filled expanse of the universe, there was still a place for raw courage and determination. For Marcus Hale, the future stretched out before him like the star-filled void he had always been drawn to, full of challenges and possibilities. But now, Earth would face that future not as a junior partner in the galactic community, but as an equal, its unique qualities recognized and valued. And somewhere in the darkest reaches of space, other cosmic entities might still lurk, but they would think twice before challenging a species capable of defeating their kind with nothing but bare hands and indomitable will. As the new alliance began its work, scientists from Earth and Zorath worked side by side, studying samples recovered from the cosmic shadow. Dr. Selena Voss led the research efforts, her expertise in xenobiology proving invaluable as they sought to understand the creature's origins and prevent similar awakening in the future. It wasn't inherently malevolent, she explained during one briefing, displaying holographic images of cellular structures. Our analysis suggests it was responding to perceived threats. The Zorath control frequencies matched patterns that would have signaled predators in its evolutionary past. General Koresh, who now regularly attended these sessions, nodded thoughtfully. A failure of understanding on our part. We assumed dominance without proper knowledge. A mistake any of us could make, Marcus added diplomatically. The important thing is learning from it. As the months passed, the alliance grew stronger. Zorath biological technology, combined with human adaptability and creativity, produced advancements that benefited civilizations across the galaxy. The Leviathan Pit, once a source of terror, became a controlled research site where scientists could study deep-dwelling creatures safely. And on certain evenings, when the work was done, Marcus would stand alone on observation decks, looking out at the stars with his scarred hands clasped behind his back. The universe remained vast and mysterious, filled with wonders and dangers beyond imagination. But humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through technological superiority, but through the oldest human quality of all, the determination to face the impossible and somehow prevail. The legend of the human who crushed a cosmic entity with his bare hands spread from world to world, growing more fantastic with each retelling. But Marcus knew the truth was impressive enough, that when all else failed, the human spirit remained unconquerable, and in the endless expanse of space, that might be the greatest power of all.